Hey, what's going on, everybody? So today with us, we have Ben-Atar. Want to make sure I'm getting that name right. And Ben had a really cool story with his freelance development, path here or career path. And I just wanted to go ahead and quickly share that, make this somewhat of a quick stream here, and just break that down and give him a moment to share. So we talked on Twitter Spaces. I absolutely love the story. We tried to connect earlier, but he just released his income statement, and it was $55,000, I believe, in the first just over a year, I guess, but the official amount was about $33,000 in a year in revenue. So, Ben, I just want to go ahead and give you a chance to share that story. And what I want to do is just start with the story of how you got fired, because that is really cool. It's something that always inspires me for people in, I guess, thinking for themselves and building something outside of their work and actually trying to set themselves up so they're not so vulnerable. So if you could just share from the moment that you got fired, and also I think you had a family at that time too. So go ahead and go into that.
Yeah, sure.
Just share that experience.
Yeah, sure. So first off, it's Eden, just to make sure, like the Garden of Eden or whatnot. But all good. So yeah, I was working for a company that, like, the whole mission statement was cultivating the culture in an office. It was kind of like an Uber Eats, but for corporate purposes. So we were doing a bunch of, like, you could order on-demand things, and in the future to kind of, again, cultivate the culture in the office. In a nutshell, COVID hit, and it hit us very aggressively. We went, from making millions of dollars on a monthly basis to not having an office to cultivate because everybody has gone remote. So I found myself, along with, I feel like, around 200 and something other people, getting fired within, a matter of, like, I want to say a week.
Wow.
Yeah, so that went down. We went from, my crew in DC, literally just breaking records and, like, doing pretty well with sales overall. Everything seemed good. And then again, COVID hit. So that happened, and I decided to just kind of take my time for a sec. I was, getting unemployment at that time once everything went down. And as soon as unemployment hit, I kind of started to question myself, like, what do I want to do? I feel like I've kind of gone through this phase of, I've never been fired before, but just working for other people, helping people, kind of, whether it's cultivating the culture in the office or whatever the mission statement was, but always helping other businesses excel and doing relatively good. Had some hiccups along the way, did my own startup in Israel, but just kind of felt like I want to try to do this alone again. Once my wife gave the green light, I figured I'm going all in on this, because I didn't think she would, because I kind of had, like, a bad run before my previous company that fired me. Once that went down, I figured I'm going all in, and I don't really have another chance to tell her I didn't make it again with trying to, go and do my own thing. So my immediate steps were to launch a company, which ended up being seamless and stupid easy in the States, which is awesome. You go online and within 2 seconds you have a brand. So I was like, shit, I'm waking up tomorrow and I have a company now. This is really cool. So then, yeah, I ended up starting to just kind of brainstorm what I could do. And I printed out road signs, which I posted about. I started calling. I went through a phase in the beginning where my wife would start driving while we would go do things. That way I could, while she was driving, I was looking at vehicles, and, like, vehicles have websites and whatnot. So I looked for two things, either a vehicle, and this is, like, I literally have no portfolio to show. I have nothing. I know a little bit of web dev, and I'm going at this, like, dream I have, right? I owned webline.com for years because I wanted to do this before, but never really did. So yeah, so I had her start driving around if we were on, like, a weekend with the kid or whatever's going on, and I would literally write down on my phone if I saw a vehicle without a website, or with a website. I would check live and see just from my phone if it's HTTP or HTTPS, because I learned the difference. And I figured, all right, if it's HTTP, I got a lead. I'm going to call them and just kind of school them on, hey, your website might not be secure. Hear me out, cold call it. Or if they don't have a website, just be like, you're literally driving around the city. I saw your vehicle and didn't have a website to check you out. And have, like, those two things going for me.
So just to be clear, it was a company website if they didn't, or a company vehicle if they didn't have a website, then you would call them, correct? So if you saw like ABC Plumbing with no website, okay, just to
literally,
sure,
yeah. And if it was a big company, I wouldn't even bother. For probably two reasons. One's just confidence, honestly. I didn't really feel like I was there yet to offer like web dev services to a company that kind of had their game taken care of for the most part. And then the second one, I would say just not looking to get into a bigger project that would overwhelm me from my intelligence and understanding of like web dev at that time. Like I didn't really know what I know today. But yeah, so, I would look for nonstop companies. She would drive around, I would jot it down, and Monday would hit and I would just start calling, all these random places that I kind of gathered around. And randomly I'd say, stop in this intersection. I'd hop out the car, stick some signs, and, keep going.
That's so cool. So first of all, you're the first person that I ever heard putting up yard signs. That's impressive. But second of all, just to kind of go back a little bit, you've had freelance experience before. You said you didn't have a good run at it. Is that correct?
So it wasn't freelancing, to be fair.
Okay.
So I started a company that was very quickly like doing kind of like Postmates in Israel. It worked. Everything was phenomenal, but I didn't manage to get investments on board at the right, like perfect timing. And we choked out of funding. So we recruited like close to $400,000, but it's a company that like the business model was, pennies from each delivery. It was before like the Postmates and all that. So we were kind of like innovating and everything was going really well, but we ran out of money and shut the whole thing down.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're running out of stoplights, putting up yard signs. What's your skill set at this point? What do you know how to build?
Ooh,
first, are you a WordPress developer? Are you hand coding stuff?
Yeah, I guess I knew a little bit of WordPress. I played, to be fair, I played with web dev like my whole life, but like I didn't really have any type of, my method of how I go about things. And I knew the difference between certain things, very basic, like HTTP, HTTPS and stuff like that. But I didn't know to tell you like how I would do things or what would be the end result with each conversation I had. I literally just started calling. And I would say very quickly, I realized that most conversations I'm having are not because the client wants it, but I just kind of was doing research and understood. So I was going into two worlds. One world was me understanding Twitter and opening an account. Literally, my Twitter reminded me my Twitter anniversary was like 3 days ago. So I opened Twitter and like got sucked into the notion of build in public, 100 days of code, found, you, Danny Thompson, and all these, influencers online. So that world kind of just naturally pulled me into the web dev stuff, the more hardcore stuff like Django and things in that nature. But every conversation I was having when I was obviously calling these random plumbers and construction guys, like, or girls, whatever, and the conversation was, it resulted in like, just, they needed like 3-4 pages. In a lot of cases, even just a simple landing page, like just something that would work, be responsive, load in phones, be very basic, and be there where they either didn't have it or again, it wasn't like anything responsive and secure. And so it naturally happened that I was studying web dev. I got some certificates with, Free Code Camp and stuff like that. But I ended up not using any of that knowledge. I ended up literally just developing my skill set with WordPress and becoming a little WordPress guru so I could just spin up quick websites with WordPress. So
that's really cool. I just had Kyle
went down.
Just had Kyle Prinzel on yesterday, and we talked about that, where going into these crazy tech stacks and what people want to build, thinking that they need all this stuff, but just learning WordPress is enough.
You always come back to WordPress.
Yeah, if you're going for these type of sites, it works. That's right.
Yep.
I mean, I haven't used it in a while, but yeah, it works for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's super easy. And I mean, that's also why, so I was telling you this earlier, it's what made me decide to split the business into two, not like on tax and whatnot purpose yet, but if you go online, I'll have webline.com and I'll have digitalatar.com, because I realized that I started doing this process as I was closing leads. I started doing this process very manually. Like I would literally develop a local WordPress environment on my machine, and then I would go live with it. And usually they would have a bunch of problems with, I don't want to name any companies or whatnot, but the bigger firms for hosting. And then I realized like there's all these technical difficulties. They're being charged a ton for simple things like an HTTP certificate and things in that sense. I figured, okay, let me offer this. So I launched my own environment, and then it started becoming where now I was learning from Django and a few things I was loving. I was learning, Linux environment and permissions and how to host multiple WordPress and websites with Nginx and all this stuff that was happening. And I'm like, this is great and I'm loving it, but this cannot scale out. Like I can't have 1,000 websites. And then I started reading into it, and then I found this thing called WHMCS, which allows you to launch your own, it's pretty much like a WordPress environment, but for hosting purposes. So it'll help you manage billing and a bunch of plugins that you can install, and you can pretty much have your own hosting environment without having to deal with hosting companies. So I could connect my own server, my own droplet, or whatever you want to use, and just host your own environment. And then through that, you can connect a bunch of droplets that would manage, say, 100 at a time, shared hosting spaces and a bunch of things that you can kind of do. And that's where I ended up finding myself thinking, okay, I have to try this out. Started kind of, messing with it, realizing, okay, I can do this. And then boom, I have 2 little companies that are starting to move simultaneously. One is the web dev, and then the other one is the web dev is telling the client, hey, just quickly open an account for me at digitalatar.com. That's where you'll be able to log in, do the billing, add your credit card, do all that stuff without me having to be involved. Where before it was like, I would go into Stripe, I would ship them, mail them the invoice and go through that whole jazz very manually. And now it would literally be a quick email. Hey, I'm so glad we had the chat. And it would just say, open an account here, add a credit card on file. And then I have, admin access, and I can just go in, launch a WordPress environment, have you up and running literally within a matter of a few clicks. So now there's 2 businesses there.
Awesome. Wow. Okay. So let's jump back into that, because I still want to finish up that story.
Yeah, sure.
Running out, putting up yard signs. So you did that for a bit. Did you go door to door? Was it just the yard signs? You were calling people up? How did that go? And then how did your first client experience go? Who was that first client? Don't give out names just for privacy reasons, but how did that thing scale to, let's go all the way to the end of that year of that $33,000?
Sorry.
That's impressive.
All around. Yeah,
good. No worries.
Something all around. I just realized. So the first client didn't speak English. I do not speak Spanish. The first client spoke Spanish. I stumbled across with some very basic habla español type of thing, and I got myself to communicate with the gentleman that picked up my phone call. I saw a plumbing company drive by, what seemed like a big company, but it ended up being that's the only truck they had, and it was really decked out. So I was like, okay, cool. He got me to call his son, and I'm just looking for a lead at this point. I didn't close anybody yet. I call his son. His son speaks very good English. We hit it off. For $500, I end up closing with him that I'll build him a website. Mind you, I have no idea how this is going to play out yet, but I know that I'm capable because I did it before just for myself to kind of see that I can do it. And within about a week, I $500, we closed the deal. Wow. And there's a plumbing website that goes live, and he's happy, and he's on GoDaddy, and everything is good. And that's that.
So that was in a week from when you decided to start that business and marketing it, or in a week from when you made contact and closed the deal?
A week within making contact with him. I feel like it took about a month for me to finally close my first lead, I would say. And then after the first lead, I kind of realized, holy crap, I just did it. I don't care about the actual price tag, but I just did this.
Yeah, you'll never forget that first client for me. Even though it wasn't really a client necessarily in the web dev industry. I made $50 in selling Facebook ads to somebody, and I was just like, because it's that first moment you realize you can actually accomplish something. The number is irrelevant. It could have been $5, but yeah. So that's cool. Okay, so $500.
Somebody's paying you for any type of intelligence and something that you taught yourself, because they just don't this guy's a plumber. If I needed a plumber, I would pay him, but he's willing to pay me now for that knowledge. And it was just fascinating to me.
You're now, I guess, considered an expert. The term is kind of loosely thrown around, but you're a professional, not an expert, a professional in your industry, which kind of goes in the same way, but you officially got paid for a service. So that's cool.
Right.
That's the story I love to hear, is that first client, because the other ones I still want to get into that too. But you land your first client, $500. How does that go? You deliver the product, I'm guessing, pretty quick, you said, in a short span. And what happens after that?
So within about a week, I end up delivering the product. He comes back to me with a bunch of revisions. We finally, I would say within I want to say 48 hours or so, a few days, I knock out everything he requested, shifting around some images, changing some text. He's live. He's super happy. And that's done. And then I actually face somewhat of a roadblock. And I realize, okay, this may have, and you can actually see this. I don't know if you're still sharing. I can't see it, but you can actually see this in my chart with my numbers where, so you can see that graph. And I always laugh with my wife that graph is literally also my mental state. So I close a deal or two, things go really well, maybe 2-3 deals. And then all of a sudden I just crash and I hit a roadblock and I'm like, okay, this probably was pure luck. Maybe it's not meant for me. Starting to question my abilities, from sales, from web dev, all types of things. Mind you, during this time, I'm waking up every single day at 4 a.m. to continue and just grow my knowledge, watching YouTube videos and doing free code camp stuff, just trying to continue and make my knowledge better. But I can't close leads. I hit a roadblock and I'm just not closing. I have road signs all over. The phone is somewhat ringing, but the leads aren't necessarily relevant. Random things are happening, but nothing really is coming through. And then I make a decision so I'll go back for a sec. I closed a few leads after that plumbing. I don't know if you want to get into that, but I closed a few leads through that.
Definitely. Yeah. So I'm noticing you have more than $500 here.
Right.
In that first bit. So it looks like you had a little bit of some action going on here. It looks like.
Right. Yeah. So I had some, again, I don't know if it's a bit of luck and a bit of just things falling into place. I started reaching out to random organizations. Nothing is working. And out of nowhere, one of the road signs call comes in. And I love telling this story because I feel like people hear road signs and they're thinking, well, you're probably getting you get a lot of calls of non-speaking, not English speakers and random things that come through. And it's really hard to kind of dissect all of that. But through that comes a lot of gold. And literally my second deal, Dennis, this guy reaches out. I'm not going to drop a name, but this guy's a multimillionaire and he lives across the street from me in a richer neighborhood. And he wants to build a website, and he's a former CEO of a public company that's being traded as you and I are speaking right now. Gigantic company. They make medical testing kits for COVID. Their company actually took off for the millionth time already. Multi-billion-dollar industry. He retired from that company. He took that company public and took another company before that public. And this guy retired and hits me up and says, hey, I don't really know anybody that's in the web dev industry, and I need a simple website. I want to put a few people together. This is kind of going to be a small thing. I'm not looking to market it or anything, but I need a website that would just show my history. So almost like a portfolio of some investments that he's had, and just something that talks about who he is. And he wants it to be something like a closed group of investors, people that come on board. They invest way over $50,000 per person, and it's a locked group, only, who he invites and whatnot. But he wanted it to facilitate it and have it look professional. So he reached out to me through the freaking road sign.
Wow.
And this guy reaches out. So I'm like, well, maybe I can shoot for more. Maybe this can be, my big one. So then I reach, I'm talking with my wife, what do you think? Maybe I should ask him for let me double it. Let me go with 1,000. Let me go with 5. I didn't know what to do. I hit him up and I'm like, hey, what do you think about 1,500? He literally doesn't even negotiate. He tells me, how long do you think we could be live? And I'm like, holy shit. All right, cool. So the money is not an issue. I just kind of closed this. Let's see that I'm actually bringing it home.
So is that, I don't want to cut you off here, but is that this next amount here? So you probably went from 500 to about, I guess that makes sense. It would have been around 2,000, but yeah, that's crazy.
Yep. So that closed, and I'm like, holy crap, that just happened. I have a $1,500 close right now. And so, that happened. I reach out to my mom, just kind of telling her, you're not going to believe it. I just closed the deal for 1,500. I feel like I could have closed it for 5,000, and I sold myself short. This guy gave me his address. I realized who I was dealing with, only in hindsight, unfortunately, or not unfortunate. It is what it is. I learned from it a ton. And so I share with my mom like that. I think I could have sold this website for a lot more.
Yeah, you learn from that, first of all. Second of all, there's always a way to come back too, because I've had it where I've sold myself short, and then you just say, okay, what did I actually sell to them for this price? If they didn't hesitate, it means they might be up for something else. He said he didn't want marketing and all that, but there's usually something you can find. I mean, if you're limited, you are, but meaning like that's all you can do. But maybe later on you can sell him something else. But
there's always things for sure.
Yeah, but the learning experience, that's key, and then you just learn how to negotiate from that.
Yeah. And again, I retrace back from saying unfortunate because the call I had with my mom, sharing with her how things played out, ended up coming back and being a great experience, because I kind of summarized with my mom that like my next deal I'm closing for like 2-3 times the amount. I'm going to try. Whatever happens, happens. So then my mom calls me back and says, hey, I might have a friend that is interested in the website, and maybe you can try to pitch it for more. Long story short, because it's a personal friend and I don't want to go into details and whatnot, but a deal closes for $4,000 and my mind is just blown at this point. And so that's kind of the graph that you see take off there. So it goes from like 500 to about 2,000. And then I close, it's an insurance company, local.
Is this client number 3 by any chance, or was there anybody in between? Because we're seeing about.
Yeah, that's it.
2,000, then you have a 4,000. You said 4,000, is that correct?
4,000. Yep.
4,000. Yeah, that adds up. Wow. Yep. I love it. I love being able to track this. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to break down that $33,000. We don't have to go into every dollar, but I just
all good. Yeah, that's literally how it went. Yep.
Awesome. And for everybody watching, you notice the trend here, because I always get people saying, well, I'm in a different part of the world and it's hard for me. But you notice that there is a little bit of luck, but I personally understand that there is something like that. But luck happens when you're pushing forward, when you're actively pursuing something like this. And what Edan's doing here is he's putting out yard signs. He's talking, he's letting people know, like, there's a trend that I see in successful freelancers. It seems like everybody gets to it differently, but the trend is always the same type of attitude it's about going above and beyond. Like Kyle yesterday would go way above and beyond on Fiverr. He did it remote. You did it in person. Like, I love this because the principles are still exactly the same. I love seeing this, and I love seeing step by step here.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I'm proud of you, by the way. Like, this excites me. I have my own numbers, and I might go ahead and break those down. My numbers are, kind of in the same range. I think yours are actually better for your first year for sure. But these numbers, I think, are what is most valuable to people watching, because a lot of people will start with the lower numbers. They're rarely going to get that $40,000 client, because if they're starting out with WordPress sites, you're not usually going to have that opportunity. This is cool. So continue. Yeah, I just wanted to jump in there because
all good. So I'll kind of fast forward a little bit into what I was kind of alluding to earlier. So things go well, a few darts kind of fall into place, and then all of a sudden nothing comes in. And in all transparency, unemployment is starting to trickle. Like, it's starting to knock at my door that unemployment is about to end. And maybe I should start considering, like, if I'm not going to close something soon, and you can see that a month, 2 months, a few months start going by, if something doesn't give, I might have to reconsider this journey. Because again, going back to how we opened up, like, I'm going to bed with a lady that had a kid with me, and we got a family going on, and I got to deliver something and bring it to the table, or otherwise, we'll have some issues. So my mental state just kind of gets shattered. I had this like really good high, and I felt like I was on a roll, and things aren't really manifesting the way that I thought they would continue to manifest. So I kind of go for a free fall, both from a business perspective. But I think that my free fall was much more aggressive because of my mental free fall, with just imposter syndrome and questioning myself and starting to just have some doubts, even though I had really good success in the beginning, but just all of a sudden not having that momentum carry on like perfectly, which is in hindsight so okay. I just started to constantly question myself. Should I wake up at 4 a.m.? Am I dedicating too much time to Django when I'm not even using Django for any project? Most clients just want WordPress. Am I doing this wrong? And just that mental state starting to come at me aggressively. And you can see.
I love this. Yeah, I love that, because that is also a very common thing too. you start feeling that imposter syndrome because now you're like, okay, right here, did I just face some luck? Did I actually do something here? And then going through this, even though you know you did it, you've experienced that, because it's like that first bit of success shows you that it's possible, but then it almost has a negative effect if you let it. To me, it was almost the other way around, where after I made the money, I actually felt worse than before I got started. Yeah, I knew I can do it, but now the opposite was hitting, and I'm just thinking, okay, now it feels like I'm just shooting from the hip now. It's random. There's nothing I can really control here. I'm really excited to hear more about that right there. So you're feeling depressed.
And mind you, at this point, the ironic thing is, if you go back to around like when I just launched the whole thing, I didn't have anything to show. I was literally closing leads without even a website to show for my company yet. Like, this was literally my wife driving me, calling live and trying to close stuff and things falling into place. And all of a sudden, when I do have a portfolio to show, when I do have a website, everything looks decent. If you judge a book by its cover, everything was perfect. And all of a sudden, nothing is giving. So it's just kind of like ironic that when I finally had it all right where it's supposed to and laid out the way you should have, nothing was giving. So then I just start understanding that if I don't figure this out, it's again another journey of me trying to go alone, maybe not in a startup-y environment, but more freelance, and it's just not going to give. So I start going hardcore with like what we were saying earlier with just like the hustle. My routine became literally like study in the morning, cold calling, cold emailing all day long. I'm not kidding, like not moving from that situation. And then picking up little one as soon as he drops at 7:30 p.m. As soon as he drops, give high five to my wife. She goes and does her thing, binge watching whatever she's doing. I'm literally outside listening to podcasts in my car, just driving around sticking signs. I would literally, because I saw it work, so I knew that it could. Like, I just need to expand on this idea. Like, for whatever reason, I didn't have a few closures. So
expand, polish,
yeah. So I just started going hard at this. So I would literally look at I would open Waze and I would find a Starbucks, say like in a random zip code I haven't been to yet. And mind you, I wouldn't actually walk into the Starbucks. I just knew that if I got to that Starbucks, usually Starbucks are around random, environments where people are living and whatever, and there's some life there. Because I'm in the suburbs, so you could randomly find yourself just driving around, and it's like, well, shit, there's no point to put a sign here. Like, there's a car every like 2 days, but not, So I would I got to a point where I had no more Starbuckses like to get to, literally about an hour and a half in my radius. Nothing at all. It got to a point where city patrols would call me saying, "Hey, are you?"
Oh man.
So mind you. The sign literally says, "Need a website? Call this number." There's no webline.com. There's nothing that says who I am, which in retrospect ended up being genius, because every time a patrol would call me, they would just give me a warning and they wouldn't really know who I am. So they would call me and say, "Hey, like, you can't really do this." I would respect it. And so what I would do is I would say, "Okay, cool. City of Rockville in Maryland just gave me a warning. I'm going to go to city of Frederick. So I'm going to go to a different city."
I love your attitude. I have this too, where it's like you do and you ask for forgiveness later. I'd rather do something, have it work a little bit, get caught for it, not get caught, but in this case, it's like just do it and see what happens. Why ask for permission beforehand? Some people would go straight to the city. You're not hurting anybody. It's
hilarious. I actually have a funny story. I have a funny story with that. One of the patrols that ends up calling me from, I'm not going to say the city because I don't want anyone in trouble somehow to stumble on this, but he calls me and he's like, "Hey dude, like, I just picked up like 40 something signs. Man, I got to appreciate the hustle. I feel bad throwing this away. I know it cost you money. Look, you can't really do this, but I got the signs in my pickup truck. Do you want to meet me somewhere and just take them? I feel bad throwing them away." And I'm like,
that's funny.
I'm like, bro, that's amazing. I appreciate that.
Because he understands. You're
Yeah.
just trying to make it happen. You're scrapping. Your back's up against the wall.
Hell
you got to do something. That attitude.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
what happens? What happens around this point? Then it looks like August comes and you either hit a big client or a few.
So I ended up landing a few clients. Again, I lose all my kind of confidence and start going back to square one of saying, At this point, if you need a website, I'll build it for you. Behind the scenes, I'm willing to build it for free just to gain traction and get gain more momentum again, because I felt like I was hitting bottom. I mean, there was nothing moving. So I hit up my sister, and this is another way of like, just kind of like, you never know where this comes from. My sister, her entire childhood, my parents would kind of get at her because my older sister and I would work and have to really help pay the bills and all types of good stuff. My little one got it good because my parents figured it out already as immigrants, and, you know, all was well. So my little sister could allow herself to go volunteer, do things that maybe my older one and I couldn't do. So I hit up my little sister and said, like, look, you literally, your entire childhood dedicated to nonprofit organizations with pit bulls and all these things that matter to you so much. And, you know, she was a hustler. She did really well, like all was good, but she never got paid for it. So I told her, like, look, somebody's got to scratch your back again, because you've scratched everyone else's helping out in so many different places. Would you mind reaching out and just seeing if they need a website? All these nonprofits probably need a website. So she literally just out of nowhere, she's in Alaska, married to an American soldier. She hits me up and she's like, there's so many, and sends me a whole list. And I'm like, all right, here we go again. Another gold mine. Now I got to figure out how to bring this home.
I love this. You are mining at this point. You're mining for gold. You found one person that you can relate to or owes you a favor. This is where philanthropy kicks in too when it comes to business. But you're digging into that. That's awesome, because now you have not a qualified list, but you have a hot list that is somewhat familiar to you, because you're not just cold calling them now. You're not just getting business names. I'm loving this right here. And I usually stop the stream at this point so everybody watching takes note of what's happening. I love that.
Cool. Yeah, let me know whenever you want to wrap up. I feel like I've been going for a while.
We're good. I'm loving the story. I said if this thing goes longer, we're fine. I was thinking we would make it quick, but I'm loving what I'm hearing. So
okay, cool. Absolutely. Cool. So my sister pulls through with this whole list, and I come back to her after like a day or two, and I'm like, hey, listen, I feel like I'm doing this wrong. Why am I cold reaching out to these people when you literally have such a solid name in there? Just reach out and ask them if they tell them your brother is up to something and try to figure it out. Even if you haven't spoken to them for a while. She's like, Eden, I don't know. I'm like, just please do this for me. It could be life-changing. So I push her to start being pushy a little bit. Actually, none of the nonprofits end up giving. And I tell her, are you involved in any communities that could possibly, you know, maybe we could just blast a message somewhere, like a bulletin board, anything at all. And she's like, oh my God, I don't know how I didn't think of this. I'm literally in 1 million Facebook groups. And I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. And you're allowed to post and do what you want. And she's like, yeah. So long story short, we craft a little message saying, hey, my brother just launched a web dev company. He's open to supporting nonprofits for a relatively cheap price. I end up wheeling just companies in, right? Things are falling into place. Again, I'm starting to pick up some steam.
Is that right here? Is this August?
Yeah, literally.
Okay.
And at this point, things are coming in, and it's such simple projects of like, you know, nonprofits that really have nothing. And at this point, I'm like feeling like I'm doing something good as well. I mean, I'm really helping like nonprofits that are doing amazing things in the world. It's specifically in the US, to be honest, in the US, that I'm helping them, you know, do all these cool things. They're doing all these cool things, and I'm helping them just put together a simple website to represent themselves, you know, better. So I start going at that. Things fall into place again. One deal for 2,000, one deal for maybe like 500. I don't remember the exact prices, but like that's more or less what starts happening. I remember even doing a nonprofit that I really liked. This is a funny story. You'll like this. A nonprofit that I get teamed up with because of my little sister, they don't have money, right? But the guy ends up sharing with me some of the nonprofits' story. They have an incredible board, right? And I'm like, if I could somehow have this board, even in any remote way, understand that there's this guy that helped them out for free from Maryland. They're in Georgia. So this is something that my signs could never give me. And I'm telling my wife, I feel like I should just do this for free, because at that point I was kind of consistent with like, all right, I got to stop with the free stuff. I got to pick up, like, I can't keep doing the free stuff.
Yeah. There's a balance between that for sure.
Yeah. And so like, I feel like I have a portfolio and stuff, but all of a sudden I've got this ticket in my hand where they need a website. I don't have the funds right now to start advertising across the nation, and I've got a ticket to Georgia. Like if I put a website together for them, from the questions I'm asking, it looks like I could put something together for them relatively quickly and have someone talk about me maybe randomly over coffee somehow in Georgia, somewhere that's hours away from me. So I figured, okay, cool. I'm just going to do this. Nothing comes out of it. Maybe 3 months later, I get a referral from them. I get a referral. That referral starts paying me $2,000 a month. A bunch of good things start coming through. They already have a website, but they need help with their marketing. A bunch of great things start falling into place. This board from the nonprofit that I supported for free ends up, I don't even know to tell you how many. I feel like, I want to say like 6, 7 referrals, some that closed for money, some that didn't, but every single referral was great. Like, wow. It just, for whatever reason, sometimes didn't work out, but great referrals just starting to come through. And this board being so thankful for what I helped them achieve. So that falls into place. And then all of a sudden I've got another vertical that's starting to pick up steam, which is just doing, organic marketing and putting together social posts and helping companies kind of be aligned to slightly better with like their basic meta tags for SEO and very like basic technical things that I was already getting pretty good at and understanding that they were clueless about. So they appreciated me just helping them out. So that was probably the last project I ended up doing for free. And I ended up closing, like maybe 6, 7 deals through this, all for pay. Some that will continue to pay me from there on out for organic marketing and whatnot. Some that even paid for development purposes. So like after that, nonprofit ended up being my final stretch of like, going up and down. And all of a sudden, and you can see that happening very nice and slow where referrals are starting to finally come through. Random clients from way before are starting to randomly refer as well. And things are just starting to finally fall into place. And, you never know, but overall I'm feeling mentally fit and things are well. And like, it seems like finally, the momentum is a healthy one and it's not just some random big project and things are slowly but surely kind of becoming steady. So
so this graph right here represents probably the most typical freelance career I've seen, and I love it because, like you said, you get some early momentum, you fall down, you get some more, but this right here is where things get good. And I want to get into a couple of things here. So you first said that you're getting your stride and it feels like things are going, and I think you're right about that. As long as you continue, this is what you want to see. These jumps are not as exciting. They're fun because you get a chunk of money, but what about this? What about this month? You want to continuously make sure that goes up. So I'm assuming at this point you probably have some kind of monthly reoccurring fees going. Do you have?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're getting better at that. You're selling probably SEO services or just hey, I'll maintain your website, make sure it's functional. This is where, you can pretty much gauge that monthly salary and know that my income's going to stay consistent as long as I keep these clients here. So that's really cool to see right there.
Yeah, for sure. And I was telling you this earlier. I also realized along the way of how I could spin up another business idea with Digital Atar. So that way I could start kind of to manage because it got overwhelming. Like I was keeping passwords with, Google Sheets and all these things were happening. And I'm like, I can't keep scaling this concept out with Nginx and all these, DigitalOcean droplets. It just wasn't healthy. So then, I spun up another idea and that kind of helped me at least not have to constantly maintain my server and make sure security is up to date and all these things. And now I kind of just maintain a main server that has all these things happening in it and allows clients to log in and manage their invoicing, change credit cards if they need to, all that good stuff. So that way I can, again, go back to just investing my time and effort into scaling out and not necessarily being in the weeds of things. So
streamlining the business. Absolutely. So I want to kind of, somebody actually has a question. So let's answer this one real quick. I know, Edan, this is going to be, I'm not trying to go into the Q&A today, but I do like this one.
Yeah,
Simple website. I know this answer is not going to be easy. Your price range, you started at 500 for that first one. What's your average? If you don't mind, I know maybe you have clients.
I don't mind. I'll tell you exactly how it is. It really just depends on potential. Again, I learned something very clear in the beginning that I learned, and it kept reassuring itself that sometimes you need to understand that there's something in front of you that is much more worthy than money. That nonprofit that I ended up building for free ended up literally changing my life completely. And I emailed them and told them that afterwards, like months down the road. So to go back to the question for a sec, with that mindset, I come into every transaction and every relationship that I start building. If there's potential to build an enormous relationship where I see that something incredible can spark out of it, I might be even more lenient to kind of be in the smaller figures than if it's kind of like something where, I don't know, like a local thing where it's limited with growth and I can't really take this thing out and like start scaling it out nationwide or international and whatnot. I might be a bit more aggressive with that. So,
so I guess a simple site, yeah, in this case, let's say
so the answer,
plumber,
yes.
yeah.
So to also answer the question with figures, because I know I kind of gave a more broad answer, just what the mindset and how I approach it, it could literally be from $1,000 all the way to $7,000. The biggest one so far has been $7,000 for a deal. And now at this point, I'm actually in a situation where I realized that Webline, the business that's kind of focused on the actual web development services, I realized that business needs to niche down a little bit or else it's going to get crazy. And it's, again, more trying to think how I can scale this and streamline. So I've noticed that like it's pretty much two buckets. One bucket, the way I see it, at least, one bucket is e-commerce. One bucket is simple websites. Well, I guess three. And then the other one is the custom solutions. Custom solutions, I haven't had an opportunity, and that's the truth, to build out something fully scaled out. I know you have great stories with how like Django and what you've built and how it's really changed your life. I mean, unfortunate or fortunate, I haven't really had an opportunity like that surface. And so for me, it's just been two buckets. Either it's the simpler stuff with WordPress environments, or it's something with e-commerce. And I've just learned, unfortunately, that Shopify I'm obsessed with when it comes to e-commerce. So I have two buckets at this point. You're talking with me e-commerce. We're talking about a transaction that could be in the thousands of dollars. Again, the biggest one I've had is $7 for an e-commerce build on Shopify. And if we're talking about a website that could be anywhere between like 5 to usually like 15 pages about your about us, who we are, services, whatever. And it can go a bit in depth, but complexity as far as technology doesn't really go out of scale. So again, it could be like in the thousands of dollars, or it could be maybe like 1,000 or 2.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at too. So just to kind of, I want to throw in my hat into the table, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
So for me, I would stick, the lowest I would ever go was 750, but that was like 3 to 4 pages. We can get this thing up in less than an hour, pretty much.
Yeah.
Get some images, and that means you have to provide your text or your content or copyright, I guess, about you and stuff like that. So I don't have to go too much, not many revisions. I would go all the way up to 2,500. Again, this is still for simplified type of websites, if we're not talking about SEO. But what I would often do is I'd often throw my client a bone here, and I would say I'll do it for $1,250, so $1,250. And what I would do is I'd put them on a monthly retainer of $95 a month for maintaining, and that contract has to be for 2 years.
Yep. Oh, so, really? So I didn't really do the contract.
So to stop this right here, this is what I noticed. Cash flow is a big thing, and that's a topic I can slightly jump into here. To stop this right here, I would like to flatline that. So I stuck to lowering initial contracts, but doing that whole
the hosting stuff.
Hosting, And how that works is I would end up getting paid out way more. So let's say I would have sold them the website for $2,500. Well, I would sell it for $1,250, and then I would put them on a $95 a month contract. Do 95 times 24. I would end up getting paid. What's the amount there? It's in a couple $3,000 to $4,000. So I'll get paid out way more. But it's the equivalent of like a house. When you buy a house or anything on a credit card, you're paying interest. Why are you going to end up paying $6 for a cup of coffee when you could just pay it in cash? Well, you may not have the money right away, and you're willing to say, hey, go ahead and lend me some money. In this case, I'm not going to charge you the full amount, but we're going to spread that throughout time. But I still need my reward in that. So that's just to kind of summarize. That's actually
great, because it also, a lot of times I would launch a website for a client, and then like they kind of disappear, or random things would happen, specifically more with the clientele that comes through the road signs and things like that. Usually otherwise there's an ability to develop some sort of a relationship, and they don't just vanish on you. but I've had that happen before. And I feel like that's another strategic way of kind of just keeping your client with you for, I mean, essentially for 2 years. So.
Absolutely.
Cool.
And the client usually stays for more. I've had clients stay way longer than that. But okay, so the last one, this is where I really kind of want to depress everybody here. And this is, I want to get honest about business, because anytime we talk about income, we always want to talk about the actual profits. It's easy for somebody to say, hey, I made $100,000 last year.
Right.
How much did you actually make? Because that's revenue, right? So let's say you made in profits, let's say that was 40,000. So what I want to do, Eden, and we talked about this before, I want to look at this $56,000 because the thumbnail in the stream says 33,000. That was what you made in your first year. But this is basically from your first year to now, which is a year and a half or so, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks like a year and a couple of months.
Yep.
So it's $56,000. And I actually want to break down one of my posts too, the one that I did yesterday, and I want to kind of compare it against this.
Sure.
How much of that was profit? And I also want to talk about how you can improve the profits, because here's actually where I can maybe even help give you some advice here. So
yeah, for sure.
Out of that $56,000, what did you get to keep? Because a lot of people that come from the work field don't understand that that's not all your money. Like a lot of that goes back into advertising, buying a computer, spending money on a client, meeting, taking them out for coffee.
Road signs.
Yeah, exactly. So what would you say that estimate is in that?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I can tell you, I know exactly what's in the checking account right now, and it's around $10,000. And that's, you know.
And you haven't touched it?
Yeah, that's first off to kind of put that on the table. But that's from like, again, a year and a half of work. And out of the 56, I every month was looking for another way to try to get leads to flow in. And so I advertised on Facebook, I advertised on LinkedIn, I advertised on Instagram, I did road signs.
So you're buying ads. You're not just putting a post, you're actually paying for ads, right?
Oh yeah. And you know, the game is expensive. It would gulp my money. And the funny thing is, I would tell clients, you know, I would pitch them, no, you don't want to start getting into advertising online unless you're dealing with a few $1,000s a month, because these systems, you know, the algorithms need money to get moving. And I found myself thinking I'm this smart ass where I'm telling clients one thing, but let me do it with, you know, 500 here and 1,200 there. And the algorithms usually in most cases need more juice than that. And so every time I would just I would get to a point where the account got to like, I don't know, 5,000-6,000. And I'm like, all right, cool. Let me make sure I reinvest back so I don't get to that bottom again, and try to like, you know, counter it with investments into marketing. But I literally was doing things I was telling clients not to do. And so I found myself every single time burning money. So I did email sponsorships and like newsletters locally and nationwide. Donations to various places where they would mention you afterwards. I did a donation with, you know, Danny Thompson's
the giveaway,
Memphis meetup thing that he had, and it was for, you know, supporting nonprofits. And at the time, I was again like deep in the nonprofit world, so I figured, okay, this is a perfect sponsorship. So again, just thousands of dollars being spent all over. And you know, I always say, like, in hindsight, I don't regret it, because now I know, and I would love to hear your take on it, but now I know also just random things I should not do. And most of it are things that I pitched clients to stay away from, but I ended up falling into it thinking again, oh, I can outsmart the system. I'm telling them not to, but I can do this better for myself, and just burning the cash throughout. So
yeah,
on everything, road signs, marketing, offline and online, like anything you can imagine. I've been sponsored in you know, local magazines of catalogs in random neighborhoods here. And like, I found everything and I got my name in there. And in most cases, it didn't work.
Yeah. So you're saying it was about, out of that $56,000, about 10,000 in profit, maybe more or less about that. That's
point. What's in there today. Yeah. And you know,
okay,
like,
cool.
There's no expenses at this point that like would, you know, I've turned everything off.
So, okay. I love that number. So I'm much more excited about the story of somebody making $10,000 than $56,000 in that time frame. The $56,000 you should be proud of. And the reason why that number should be focused on, because you might have some say that, well, why wouldn't you make it, you know, why wouldn't you say you made 10,000 instead of 56? Well, the 56 means that you can earn that in revenue. You should always be proud of what you make in revenue. Also, number two, I'm going to pull up my numbers here. You can also make more from that same amount. That means if you learn how to streamline things, you can absolutely make that more efficient. So somebody asked a question. I just want to throw this in. Somebody asked what you paid in taxes. Let's not go into that number, but look at it this way. This is the beauty of being a business owner. He does not pay 50 or Ben, or I keep saying Ben because you're
all good. It happens to me all the time.
So Eden, you don't pay $56,000 or taxes on $56,000. You pay taxes on $10,000, which would only be a couple $100. Because that was not your profit. The government doesn't get to take what you made in revenue. They get to take what you kept. So that's
exactly how it is.
This is why
in my situation, it was also like at least I would say in the US, because I don't know if people are watching from all over, but in the US, the way that I'm structured, it also encompasses, my personal situation as well when I file taxes. So like me having a kid and just random variables like a house, a mortgage, random variables that you can have play out in your favor can kind of fluctuate that number of what you're really supposed to pay off at the end of the year. So things balance out.
Yeah. In that case, you probably paid a couple $100, if nothing, on that.
Yeah.
I always tell people, start a business, get a 1099. If you can structure it the right way, you will make money. I mean, just from having my own business each year, I'm not going to say the number, but it's pretty much like a side income just in taxes that I get
100%
a key from that. So yeah, I absolutely love that. And this is where I want to go into giving you some advice here. Not give advice, but break down my side of things, because you actually commented and you said, hey, I need to get better at profits here. So I did this yesterday, but here was my income and I had a different structure. So basically I went hard. I got over 100 clients within the first 2 years. And then I ended up actually firing a bunch of clients, getting rid of them, doing stuff like that. And I stuck 4 to 5. And this is where 2017 happened. So it was $26,000 in revenue. Profits were $7,000. $71,000 in revenue in 2016, only $28,000 in profit. And this wasn't full revenue. There was revenue that I didn't even include in this because I just pulled up tax statements. But there was contractors that I just basically had the client pay. So it was about twice as much as this, if not, about twice as much, I'd say. 2017 comes around. This is where things get exciting. Look at this. We're making less, but we're profiting more. This is the number I want to see in my bank account right here, $38,000. This is a side income. What happens here is I rented an office early. I didn't need an office. I spent a lot of money on client meetings, brochures, pamphlets, Facebook ads. I've done that. At this point, first of all, I got rid of a bunch of clients, but the beauty of what happens here, if you look, I just realized, you know what I'm doing? I didn't show
I was going to tell you, I think you're not sharing your screen.
Yes, I'm sorry. That's embarrassing. Okay, so I was going over these numbers. So the beauty of what happens once you start getting into your business is things start getting smooth right here. This is because I don't have to pay for advertising anymore. I don't have to go out to client meetings. I've learned what makes money, what doesn't. So now I'm not spending extra money. In the beginning, you're just you're throwing dirt up against the wall, seeing what sticks. I was going to say shit, but you're throwing shit on the wall. It's trying to keep my stream more appropriate. You start figuring out how things work and you start figuring out what you can take off the plate, what you need and what you don't, and you become efficient. Right here, income goes up $10,000, even though the actual revenue goes down. What is that? 7,000? Yeah, about 7,000. Then we go into 2018. And remember, my clients are basically very consistent. I'm dealing with 4 to 5 right now, 32,000. We had one client kind of drop off. I adjusted a few things there, spent some money on a trip, 64,000, 40,000 right there. Look at the difference between this year and this year. Yep. So this is where it gets exciting. So if this number makes you sad, where if Eden made $56,000, but only kept 10,000, I promise you, if this number were to stay, in my case, my number stayed the same because I wasn't pushing the business. I was working a full-time job. This number should be virtually doubling every year, moving up 20%. This number, if Eden stays the same, that 10,000 should move up to about 20,000, if not 30,000 the next year 100%. As he starts streamlining it, because now you have clients that call back from a year ago that said, hey, so-and-so referred me. You've laid the foundation and people are starting to reach out to you. So you're spending money on just keeping clients, maybe, thank you cards if you want to go that direction, or a phone call, but things you're not having to invest a lot of money into. So this is one of the most exciting parts about this. And this is where I just wanted to give you some hope there. That number, you're going to be able to fill in that gap and close that, because you're not going to have to spend so much money on yard signs. That's going to be a thing of the past, I'm sure, for you. I mean, that's impressive that it worked. I don't think that that's the way that you should continue to go. If it works, why not? But I just feel like you're going to find something more efficient. You're going to find a niche and you won't have to spend $1 in advertising. I mean, these last 4 years right here, or last 3 years, not $1 was spent in advertising. The only
Yeah, I
money
love
that
it.
was spent there was maybe in needing to buy something for a client or spend some money in AdWords for them. But yeah, so I just wanted to end it with that, or not end it actually. I want to pull up your website. So Eden, you do have a website, webline.com. This is your business website. So if anybody who's looking to hire Eden, go ahead and check him out. He's linked up. I'm going to link up his YouTube channel. He is going to start a YouTube channel too. He's also on Twitter. What are you going to do with your YouTube channel? Are you going into freelancing? Are you going to focus on growing a business? What aspects? So if people
I
do
love
want to
that.
subscribe, what do you want to do?
Yeah, I love that you asked that. I know we're wrapping up. I'll add one thing. I saw the reason I decided to even consider a YouTube channel is because I saw one of your videos randomly surface on my feed about you were doing a trial, like you did like a fake company and a locksmith. I kept
Oh
wanting to
yeah,
say
yeah.
plumbing, so you did a locksmith thing, and you kind of started selling the leads and did this. So I figured like as a so for anybody that I don't know somehow doesn't know, but the story for you, Dennis, I don't know if you want to tell it quickly, but
Yeah, basically, I learned how to build websites because I wanted to be an affiliate marketer because I saw people balling out in wherever they wanted to be around the world, swimming in pools and making money online. So I wanted to learn how to do that. I'm trying to summarize a story. So I
yeah.
figured out I needed to build websites. So I was like, okay, I'm going to learn with Wix because WordPress was way out of my league at that point. So I was like, all right, Wix, we'll do it. So I built up a business website, which was a locksmith website because I want to practice on something that's real, I guess, like pretend like I'm actually working for a client. That website, and there's a couple of videos on my channel about it. That website ends up ranking really quick. I started getting phone calls, people needing their door
I
unlocked,
love
their
this
car
story.
door.
I love this
And
story.
I was like, oh shit. So I got to start a business around this now. So I started a business around it, hired a buddy to do it, got licensed real quick, or licensed. Yeah. Started making some money off that and then realized I can build businesses and I know how to do SEO. It kind of happened by accident. Ended up making money off of that and then selling that business for $6,000. And the client that bought it from me was a competitor that got pissed at me for stealing his leads. So they ended up buying the website, and in that contract, they had to hire me for a minimum of 4 months for $3,000 a month. So I made $18,000 out of that one deal plus the money I made before. And
I love that
we
story.
actually ended up working longer than 4 months, but I'm not going to say because I don't want to give out client names and all that, but that client is still ranked number one in the city that I
Nice. So I love the story. And when I watched one of the videos that spoke about this into detail of how it all played out, I figured like, holy crap, I could totally start doing a YouTube channel where I just literally share some of the things that I've been doing. So like the first thought I had was, say like a 3-part series. And this is kind of what you did, where I do it though from like my perspective of how, so there's a local company, a home improvement company here that I literally changed their game up. They used to go pre-COVID, and all that, they used to go to all these shows and generate leads in so many different ways. And now they're literally generating, I generate for them through PPC in various ways, leads on a monthly basis. They don't go to any shows anymore. They literally go to 2 things a year just to show face and be with the community. But that's it. Like they're not worried about leads. It all happens seamlessly from, me doing it all for them. And they have literally quadrupled their numbers. I actually tweeted one of the texts I had, like the client literally sent me a message. Holy shit. We just closed a contract of, I think it was like 200 and whatever $1,000, for like a basement and whatever the hell was in that project of home improvement. But as soon as that happened, and then I watched your video, I was like, wow, I should like just do like a 3-part series of like, hey, here's how to put a website together, a landing page, just a simple landing page with WordPress. And then here's how to drive traffic to that landing page. And then here's how you could just start outsourcing it to one of the home improvement companies that I've been working with to generate them leads. And that's it. And then just spin it off and sell it. And so I had that whole thing kind of playing around in my mind. And I realized that like so many people are so overwhelmed to just start, and they don't understand how simple this can be sometimes. And this, like launching a website on WordPress nowadays, you don't have to know code. Like if code overwhelms you in any way, and if you do know code, great, but like you don't have to. And if you just do the most dummified version of any PPC tutorial to wrap up that landing page that you did, you literally have now a business in your hands. The question is that service good? Is that service going to generate leads? referrals from the basic leads that you throw at them. So to wrap that up, like I just had an idea of, wow, I could start just having random tutorials and things, because I never saw myself as like, here's how you build a whole e-commerce or whatever. Like I love that there's others that do it. I kind of see it more of like my hustle, my freelance, like how to go about business, if you will, coupled up with like the tech and all that good stuff. So I felt like your locksmith story was a great inspiration for me to kind of take it in my own way, and like ordered a mic and haven't really done anything with it yet because I've been really busy, but that's in a nutshell, like how I want to go about it.
I love it. So what I would recommend for you then, I would stick to that for sure. I think you have two types of people that you can have watch your channel. The first one is anybody here. When Edan makes his channel, he's literally going to start it right now. So make sure that once I post a link, it's not up there yet, but it will be in, right after the stream or in an hour or so. Go ahead and check it out. Do that. Edan, I would recommend you focus on this audience because your story is going to inspire freelancers. So that could be one part of your audience is other freelancers. And that's awesome. I think you can do that. And there is ways to grow your business from that because there's connections with other freelancers. Just helping your name grow as an expert in the field is going to help. Number two, I love what you were saying, talking about growing your clients. Put out videos and grow in a plumbing website or a construction company. Your clients are going to see that, and there's going to be people that aren't your clients that are going to take a look at that, and you're just establishing your brand. Make it fun. You will get clients. So for anybody that's watching that feels like YouTube could be their route, promote your client stuff on social media, on YouTube. Make it, you're going to have to format it in a way, but if you do that, you will get the freelancers and you will get the customers coming in.
Yep.
I love it. So if anybody wants to see how that's done, Edan, I'm rooting for you. I will help you promote that. I will have you on the channel again when it's up just to help you do that. Cause that to me is something that's very important, is seeing other people grow. That it's what helps. It helps me, I guess, breathe, I guess. Like it's life for me to see other people grow. I love seeing
I get it.
Go from
square
one. So that's why I love sharing this. So yeah, go check that out. Back to your website, that is weblime.com. I will link that up for SEO purposes. That will help you. It's going to be a different type of backlink because it's from YouTube. But if you're looking at how to structure your business website, use this as an example. So thank you so much for joining me. That's going to be awesome. Stream. Yeah. Thanks for sharing your story. Yep.
Thank you.
Right. And thanks everybody for watching, for joining in. I hope you guys got a lot out of this, and that's going to be it for now. And I will end the broadcast.